Jewish world were blessed with many prophets. As we learned in the past, we are familiar now with so many different names. How about woman prophet, the prophetess? So I'm sure that many of us were familiar with prophetess name like Miriam. But today I'm going to share with you a special prophetess in the Tanakh, mentioned only once, or you may argue twice, once in the book of Kings and one in the book of Chronicles. The name of that prophetess was Hulda, and it's very much connected to the upcoming festival of Pesach, because here in the diaspora, the second day of Pesach, we have a special Haftorah, biblical chapter from the second book of Kings that we're going to read for the second day of Pesach. So, who is Hulda? Why she's considering in the canon one of the 7 very important biblical prophetess? And what we, modern days today, know about Hulda and her influences. Here we are, second book of Kings. You look at the text. We're about to reach the text of the Haftorah, but first let's go backward. Second book of Kings, chapter 22. A little history. Jewish world suffer from the wrong kings, especially in the biblical times. It was good kings, and there are several not such a great kings, but some of them, the text itself called those kings an evil deed, evil in a sense of the way that they officiate, perform their duties. One of the great, not just a good king, but a great king, the end of the Haftorah of the second day of Pesach, described a text that wasn't like him before and will never be like him ever. That's the text. Is king by the name of Yoshiyahu. If I'm not mistaken, the English translation is the spelling of Josiah, Josiah. It's hard for us to understand the concept of age in the biblical times, but just reading the text, he was appointed at the age of 8. Again, don't take it in the wrong context of our days, the middle of 2019. He tried to do something different. We are always exposed for children and grandchildren who go either way, very different than their ancestors. Yoshiyahu did it in a good way. He opposed his grandfather and father, and he tried to have people doing teshuvah, meaning repent, return back to God. Many sins, many transgressions took place at that time. First, the famous one, his grandfather, a very bad Jewish king to say the least, was his grandfather Menashe. Menashe is the king that we remember, those who are familiar with the biblical study and history. He was a king that brought idols to the temple. His father, soon we're going to discuss, also very unpleasant and bad king, Ahaz. So Yoshiyahu tried to rejuvenate and purify and clean the temple maintenance and bring it back the way it should be. The high priest was Chilkiyahu. And as those who are familiar with cleaning and renovation and construction, you know that when you clean a estate, you clean a property, it turns out that there is a lot of discoveries. I recently talked to a person who went to those ancient Jewish homes in Turkey. I heard it in the past from people who visit Portugal and Spain. All of a sudden they see yellow-green in those walls, and they dig in, and it was a sacred Jewish documents, sometimes even ancient money and more, that people who are persecuted hide it in their estates. So here we are, at that era, Chilkiyahu, the Kohen Gadol, the high priests, after cleaning as much as he could with others who help him, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, he discovered a hidden Torah scroll. And that Torah scroll that was hidden, he was kind of petrified. He was shocked to open it and discover a ready-made Sefer Torah. Point of reminder, his father, the late King Achaz, burned Sifrei Torah, the text say. And that was one of the hidden Torah scroll in the temple. So, as the high priest, he opened the text of the Torah. And it's a part of our belief that when you're opening the text of the Torah, the meaning of the reading contains something to the people, especially in incidents like that. After so many years of contaminations and more that took place from the predecessors. He opened the Torah Chilkiyahu, and it was Parashat Ki Tavo, the biblical chapter from the book of Deuteronomy, the dealing of the series of admonition for misbehavior. Not just that, is a series of very strong language of curse that spread throughout that chapter. So, he looked at that with great awe and amazement and tried to understand, to figure out what the message is here all about. It's written there, if the Jewish people will follow the path of blueprint of life meaning the Torah and mitzvot, then they have a good life. Otherwise, it's a very strong language of admonition. He took that message of amazing hidden Torah that was found, and the text itself, and he sent it to a King Yoshiyahu, the righteous king that just renovated the temple. Yoshiyahu asked him and another high officer, high minister by the name of Shaphan, to go and ask that serious question to a special person, the prophetess, female prophet, by the name of Hulda. Question that soon we deal a little bit, why Hulda? The text pointed out that it was other prophets. But a little bit the history or the historical context. It was at that time a great persecution of the Jewish people, and several well-known prophets took place. It was the prophet Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, the famous one, who were the great prophet that prognosticated the destruction of the temple, the first temple. And the text said that he was traveling throughout the markets, meaning he was, in a way, a fellow that gave a speech of admonition tried to change people's way and warn them of the destruction. Unfortunately, people, the way the text described, did not take Jeremiah the way they should. It was another great prophet by the name of Tzfania, who instead of traveling mistovev bashvakim, traveling throughout the markets, he went to different congregation, different batei knesset, synagogues, and talk to more educated, observant people. And it was Hulda. She wake up and talk in those days to the ladies. So here, imagine there is a special delegation that go and approach Hulda and ask her that question. Here, Yoshiyahu sent Hilkiyahu, the high priest, to the temple. They clean up the building. They discover a hidden Torah. They open it. It was the series of admonition, the curses. What does that mean? Hulda answered emotionally and beautifully. And she said, yes, this event will take place, meaning the destruction and the curses will take place, unfortunately, in the upcoming destruction of the first Jewish temple. Yet, she said, since King Yoshiyahu was such a righteous man, such a wonderful Baal Tshuva king, and he wake up the souls of the nation, did all these actions, therefore the heavenly decree of destruction will postpone only after Yoshiyahu will be gone, when he was no longer among the living, because with his righteousness, in a way, he's not deserved to see such a destruction in his days. Unfortunately, he was one of those people that get killed, but her prophecy come true exactly the way Hulda predicted it. Now, the question is, why the king Yoshiyahu sent to Hulda and not to others like Jeremiah? In a Talmud, in a Gemara, there are several explanations. The famous one, they are mishpacha, they are family. Hulda and Jeremiah, since they are connected by family membership, so Yirmiyahu is fine of asking her. If you dig in the text in the Talmud, they are descendants of Yehoshua, Joshua, the successor after Moses, Yehoshua bin Nun, and his wife Rachav that converted. And after Rachav saved the two important people, Caleb and Pinchas, then some greatest people, greatest descendants came out of that, and among them was Yirmiyahu and Hulda. The great 16th century Kabbalist and Rabbi, the Ari, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria Ashkenazi, explained that there is a very strong connection between them. Rachav, the wife of Yehoshua bin Nun, she hid the two survivor spies, Pinchas and Caleb. And the text said, Vatit menem, that she hid them. So, in a sense, if you look at the letter Hulda, it's double meaning. Hulda can be a name of a person, but also can someone tell me what is a Hulda in a sense of animal? How do you call it? Anyone knows what is called? Anyone knows the name Hulda? What is Hulda? It's an animal. How do you call that animal? It's I think it's called whistle, right? Anyway, that's the animal that is hiding in the under homes and places like that, right? In the halls. So the king Yoshiyahu sent it to her because, and that's something so deeply explained by the Arizal and others, she have these women, Rachmanus, as a special compassionate soul. It's not a strong language of Jeremiah in our, obviously, understanding, Kivyachol, is her expression and interpretation, as we said in English, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? So she basically said that it happens, but the good news is not really yet. As long as Yoshiyahu is the king, it will wait a little bit. Some said that Jeremiah went to have back the Aseret HaShvatim, the 10 tribes. So that's the reason why Yoshiyahu sent her his delegation. Now, as we said, Yoshiyahu, the king, he wake up the souls of people and make them doing teshuvah. He unfortunately get king. But another question about Hulda, what makes her so special? One of the interpretations is if you read the text in the book of Kings and the rabbinic interpretation of the text as well, she have a husband. The husband of Hulda, the prophetess, was name is Shalom ben Tikva. Shalom ben Tikva. He was a wealthy person who carries a tremendous lineage. However, he was not Talmid Chacham. It wasn't the greatest scholar in the world. Yet the text described how he used to stand at the city gates and took care of all the people in need. Someone was thirsty, he makes sure that that fellow drink water. He helped those in needs, those indigents. And as a result, he was rewarded, some rabbis explain to us, based on the text, that his wife gets this divine inspiration of prophecy. The text describes his funeral. One of them was that it was at that time a different group of armed forces, a military, that came, and while they see his funeral and they stop and they notice his body, they put his body next to Elisha grave. And again, we need to understand the text, but just the way it's written literally, by attaching the two, he wake up, resurrected again, and live again. And he was merited to have a descendant, the text describes, by the name of Hanamel ben Shalom. That's the son of the parents Hulda, the prophetess, and her husband Shalom. The son was named is Hanamel. A little bit about her. She sat and teach people in the city of Jerusalem. And she was in a special place. You know, when you see, obviously, we are in a generation that we cannot enter the Temple Mountain. But if you go on the description of the Temple Mountains, in the ancient time, it was the different gates. And in the Talmud, there is a description of those gates around Temple Mountains. Two of them, listen carefully, two of those special gates named after Hulda. And it's a description in both in the canon and in the Talmud that she was such a righteous person, a great orator and teacher. She taught Torah to a public. And one of the things described that in her way of modesty, as much as she was erudite and a great teacher, she found a place that was an open space, so is no issue of yichud, is no issue of a breach of modesty for her. And unlike many other names, she was merited to be buried in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. And we should know the specialty in that, because in those days, they did not bury people, even the greatest people in Yerushalayim, only the kings. And Hulda, the prophetess, was merited to be buried among those highest level of recognition, the Jewish kings in Yerushalayim. And therefore those gates is called Sha'arei Hulda. As we mentioned earlier, Maran Arizal, the great Kabbalist of the 16th century, he explains that there is also esoteric part, a little secret Kabbalist idea with that. The Talmud describes a story of a young woman that those days the source of life was the well, was the water, and she was traveling in a place that is like a desert, and she was in a great need for water, and eventually she just found a well of water. So she went down on the ladder to get the water, and she was able to drink, but then she was stuck there. She couldn't come out of that well. She screamed and yelled, and a young man passed by, and he helped her to come out of that well. And it's a very romantic, fascinating description in the Talmud, how both agree upon to get married later on in life. They are just young, I assume teenager kids. So those kids, each of them departed, they went to their cities, and prior to their departure, they make some type of witness or commitment. You know, in order for us, modern days, to do a wedding, we have to have ketubah, a marriage agreement, we have to have two witnesses. So they said to each other, we have our witnesses. We have a well of water, and they saw Hulda. What is Hulda, you remember? What is Hulda? It's a whistle, right? So they saw also a whistle running around. So they said, these are our two witnesses. Years passed by, and the Midrash, the rabbinic writing, describe how this young man totally forget his commitment. He married another woman, and several years later, they have a baby boy. He grew up, and one day, he went around a well, and unfortunately, he sank and died. The second son grew up in a very young age. All of a sudden, a hulda, a whistle, put a venom, some type of biting, and killed him. So the wife asked the husband, what is this? And the husband confesses toward her, and he said, yes, it was many years ago. I helped a young woman to come out of being stuck in a well. And we make those two witnesses, the well of water and the hulda, the whistle. His wife asked, and they got divorced. And he went back to the city, the village of that woman. Meanwhile, the Midrash, the rabbinic writing, describe how she pretended to be insane because she kept her faithfulness to that young man. And he said that he is willing to marry her, even she ostensibly speaking appears as a person insane. They married, it's like nice American movies, they married, they have children, and everything went well. But the great Maharal Prague, the great rabbi of those days Czechoslovakia in Prague, explained, number one, you can derive from here the faithfulness of women. He said that when we read the Parashat Sotah, we read in the Bible, the book of Numbers, the story of issue of husband that suspected his wife, to be unfaithful, the via negativa we derive from that, how much women are faithful in a way more than men. So far that we have in Ashkenazi community, much later, goes close to our days, the 13th century great Rabbeinu Gershom, that put a special ban, a special cherem, against marry more than one wife. But anyway, the Arizal explained to us that those prophetess, Miriam and Hulda, Miriam is the well of water, which we're all familiar. The miracle Jewish people survive is because of Miriam, the well of water during the desert time. And the Hulda, he explained that that was a transmigration of souls. The merit of the well of water is because of Miriam. And here, a little bit about the names. That young man, his name is Yehoram ben Achav. And according to those Kabbalistic sources, he took, in the previous life, from a widow that owing money, her sons as a servant, as a slave. And therefore he gets punished. The Arizal and others explain to us that come back in Gilgul in the transmigration. And fascinatingly, the rabbis, close to our days, the Kabbalist rabbis, find a gematria, a numerical value of the Hebrew letters Hulda and the letter Bor, which is a well, the same as his name, Yehoram. But the Gemara also expand the negative side of Hulda. They say that some rabbi attribute to her some type of arrogancy, because the way that she communicated, if you read in the book of Kings in the text, chapter 22, when King Yoshiyahu sent her his delegation, she said, "You should tell the man that sent me," instead of saying, "You should tell our king." Arizal, the great Kabbalistic rabbi of 16th century, said that she should be more kind of humble in that sense. But anyway, in the Gemara they said that the rabbis teaches us the importance of the faithfulness of the wife, and so much more. So this is just the introduction and the idea of what Hulda is all about. The Haftorah that we're going to study is the next chapter. It's the chapter 23, and this obviously to the upcoming festival of Pesach, which we will discuss at length in the next session.